In the past 3 months, Ukraine has liberated over 750 settlements, and Russia has captured under 10, and yes, I mapped all of them. Russia's advances have slowed to snail speed, while Ukraine has done nothing but gain land. They performed the massively successful Kharkiv counterattack, and then the more drawn-out Kherson counterattack, so it's a very fair assessment to say that Russia is losing the war. However, many people still say that Russia has won, and to an extent, they're right. Russia has achieved the base minimum goals that it set out to do at the beginning of the war. They secured water supply and a land bridge to Crimea, but was that worth the 85,000 men in the process? We'll go over that and more in this video. In the beginning of the war, there were varying expectations for what Russia wanted to achieve. Some just wanted to take a couple oblasts, while some wanted to annex the entire country. One thing everyone agreed on was that Russia should secure water supply to Crimea and a land bridge to Crimea. The way to know that these are Russia's core objectives are pretty simple. During the Kharkiv retreat, the Russians lied and said that they were already withdrawing from the Kharkiv region, which is false. Let's say for a second that you are Russia, and you want to take over the whole Donetsk Oblast. In order to fully do that, you need to take out the two major cities of Sloviansk and Kramatorsk. Do you prefer the red line on this map or the blue line in this scenario? On a quick side note, Russia's plan to take these two cities was to use Izium, Liman, and Bakhmut as bases to hit Sloviansk and Kramatorsk from all sides, simultaneously collapsing the Seversk pocket. Losing Izium, which led to Russia losing Liman as well, forced the only invasion path to be to go through Bakhmut, and we all know how that's going. Russia was never able to get an effective force across the Seversky Donetsk River to fully capture Seversk, which left them with Bakhmut as their only option. So Russia was never planning to pull out of Kharkiv. These people were saying that they were withdrawing equipment, but this was likely a very small process of moving it to the Kherson region after Ukraine announced their counterattack. So anyway, back to what I was saying. This was not a core goal because the Russians had an excuse for this. Also with the Kherson retreat, they said that they never planned to hold it, and it was never necessary to their goals. The land bridge to Crimea and the water supply are the only two inexcusable things to lose. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if Ukraine does a breakthrough in North Luhansk and Russia has to fall back to the 2014 line, and Russia says that it wasn't necessary and they have already achieved all their goals. And as I was writing this, I just remembered that they called the whole northern offensive to take Kyiv a feint as well, and retreating from Snake Island a goodwill gesture. So, if a potential attack towards Melitopol or Mariupol bared fruit, the Russians would have taken an inexcusable loss and could objectively be classified as losing the war. But right now, Russia has achieved the minimum amount of goals that they require to call it a victory. So in essence, you could say that Russia has won. But was it worth the 85,000 men that fell to secure these gains? Was it worth the crippling economic sanctions that the West levied on Russia, which is depleting their supply of reserve cash? Was it worth having 300,000 men leave the country to avoid conscription in a country that already has major issues with population decline? Was it worth using up to 60% of all high-precision missiles that Russia had up to that point? Was it worth losing nearly 3,000 tanks, almost 6,000 combat vehicles, 1,900 artillery systems, 400 rocket launch systems, 600 aerial combat vehicles, 1,500 drones, 500 cruise missiles, and 4,500 other vehicles? If your answer is yes, then Russia won. That's up to your own interpretation. However, we never know where the front is going to change next, and we'll have to see what happens. But in the end, war has no winners. This war was a decision by one man in an attempt to save his backwards country at the expense of another. And with that, I'll see you guys later. A big thanks to my channel members, Gene Helferts, Stig Grun, Butler-esque, David Appel, Delo Mathatas, Phil Martin, Evan Shin, and a special thanks to my third tier members, Ashley C137, Joel Raindeau, and Mike Q. And a thanks to Rye Jones and JG Bashlow for supporting me on Patreon.